everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is CJ, the Populist New Yorker, and today we're going to be taking a look at the best case scenario for the Democrats in the 2022 Senate midterm elections. So I'd previously made a video yesterday about the best case scenario for Republicans in the midterms in the Senate elections. You can find that in the description below if you're interested. But we'll get started with this video. So, of course, the red states are safe for the Republicans. The blue states are safe for Democrats. Iowa, I still have a safe Republican because it's likely that Chuck Grassley is going to run for re-election. Even in a best-case scenario for Democrats, he would still probably win resoundingly by a safe margin. But I've taken Ohio out of the safe category, which was in the safe category for the best case for Democrats, Republicans rather, because it would be a lot closer in a best-case scenario, I think. So we'll start off from west to east like we usually do in these videos with the state of Nevada. Of course, Nevada is currently the candidates running are Cortez Masto, who is a incumbent senator. She does have a primary challenger in Alan Reinhart, who is a Black Lives Matter activist. Ran for governor and U.S. Senate in 2016, so he ran against her last time as well, I guess, in the primary. But in a best-case scenario for Democrats, this would be a seat they certainly hold. Again, there's no actual general election polling right now, so I have no idea what Cortez Masto's actual position is in the race. That's why in my normal predictions, I normally just give it to her because incumbency advantage, and Nevada is a light blue state. So I think it just makes sense to give her the benefit of the doubt in those situations. But I think in a best-case scenario, this would easily be a probably a likely win, we'll say. Maybe like 7 points, 6 or 7 points, likely or lean, somewhere in there. But I think this would certainly be a likely victory for Cortez Masto in a best case. Arizona, of course, we have incumbent Senator Mark Kelly in Arizona, and he's fairly popular. Again, against the polling against his alleged challengers, people that they've speculated as challengers. I don't know why they put it John McCain in, I guess it was a extreme hypothetical, but he was actually polling the worst, probably because a lot of Republicans probably wouldn't support John McCain if he was around against Mark Kelly. But Mark Kelly is trouncing all of his opponents. Now, again, this is one poll. This is the OH Predictive Insights, so I don't really know their leaning or know much about the poll. But most election predictions put this in lean Democratic, and I think in a best-case scenario, it would be lean Democratic. I don't think it would be likely like Nevada. Arizona is not nearly that blue. If we go back to the 2020 election, Mark Kelly won by 2.4%. In a best case, I think he would overperform that margin a bit, maybe get 4 or 5 points even. Arizona, keep in mind, is still a purple state with a deep red history. You know, Arizona has been strongly Republican for decades now on the state level and, of course, on the federal level, too, in how it votes in presidential elections. It's no shock to me that Republicans in the state of Arizona would keep the Senate election in the lean margin, even with Mark Kelly being as popular as he is. But in a best-case scenario, it's going to be a lean seat for Democrats. In the state of Wisconsin, if we take a look back at the last time the Wisconsin seat was up, Ron Johnson, the incumbent, won by around 3 points. And he did so, of course, by doing really well in the suburbs. He did a little worse in rural areas than Trump did, only slightly. I think in some places he probably overperformed. In a best-case scenario, Democrats would probably have to have a strong nominee. And Ron Johnson probably wouldn't run. In a best case, it would probably be some, out there Republican. Interestingly enough, the only poll, well, this is a Democratic poll, so I'd take this with a grain of salt, has Tom Nelson, who is one of Ron Johnson's opponents in the Senate election, beating Ron Johnson. But, of course, this is a best-case scenario for Democrats, so in a best case, they would definitely pick up the seat of Wisconsin and probably win it by a lean margin. Again, probably not as high as Arizona because Wisconsin tends to be very close. But I think it would be somewhere in the range of 3 to 4 points. Again, this is best case. This is not my actual prediction. If we look at the margin that Wisconsin went to in the presidential election, it was very, very close. And statewide, Wisconsin is not nearly as Democratic as it was in the past. Bush was able to keep Wisconsin close both times back in 2000 and 2004. But since then, Wisconsin has drifted much more to the right, and it's voted Republican in a presidential election last cycle, which goes to show you the shift we're having in the state. But I think in a favorable off year for Democrats, and 2020 could be favorable on the Senate level, depending on the right candidates, of course. Again, it really depends on the candidate and the national environment. But in the best case, that would be a pickup for the Democrats. Ohio, I think in a best case scenario, the Republican still wins by a lean margin. I think Tim Ryan, who is the Democrat running for Senate, the leader, I think, running for Senate among the Democrats, is actually the strongest opponent to whatever Republican is put up. And the Republican primary is very chaotic. I haven't made a video on the Ohio Senate race yet, but I probably should. There are a lot of people running in this primary, and a few big names. We have J.D. Vance, Josh Mandel. So it is a really messy primary, I suppose. And I don't really know if we have any favorites yet. I'm not quite sure. But regardless, well, I guess Josh Mandel answered my own question. Regardless of that, though, I think on the Democratic side, Tim Ryan probably will have the best chance against any Republican. He is from a district that I believe voted for Trump or was close to voting for Trump. His district, we'll look at his House district real quick. He was in danger of actually being knocked off in the last election. Tim Ryan's district, well, not in danger, but he won this district by a much smaller margin than he'd done in the past. And then one of the reasons for that is because Northeast Ohio, if we look at the presidential map, has gotten a lot more red than in the past. I think Tim Ryan would be the type of Democrat that could bridge the gap and certainly run up margins with white working class voters, which would make the race close. But I think Ohio being as red as it is, I don't think at this point it would possibly be a pickup in a best case scenario. Even with a weaker Republican nominee, I think the wins and the national environment would still push it toward Republicans, although it's not impossible. But I'd say realistically, in a best case scenario for Democrats, Ohio would still stay red. New Hampshire would probably go to Maggie Hassan by a likely margin. This would be in a scenario in which Chris Sununu does not run. That would certainly be the best case for Democrats. Democrats probably want that. Possibly Donald Bolduc, who was the nominee back in 2016. Maybe he runs again. Polling, though, he's doing very poorly against Maggie Hassan, and I think that's probably how the race would play out. Now, I don't think it would actually be a 52-39 margin. Probably something in the range of a 53-45 or something like that, but in a best-case scenario, Democrats hold on to New Hampshire. That already puts them at 50 seats. The state of Pennsylvania, if we look back at the 2020 election, Pennsylvania was fairly close. It was within a point and a half. It was a 1.2% margin for Joe Biden. Trump really dropped the ball in the Philly suburbs. I think that's the main reason he lost the state. He did a lot worse in places like Chester County. And he did worse in a lot of the rural areas, if we just look at the trends. Most of the eastern half of the state, and again, there's a lot of deep red counties in this part of the state, still trended more Democrat. So it's not unlikely to think that Democrats would be favored. Again, if you find a candidate who can bridge the gap, who can win over more white working class voters, you could flip this seat. This seat, of course, is held by current Republican Senator Pat Toomey. If we look at the polling here, I don't know if we have any Democratic internal polling. We do. Fetterman is leading by a lot. Now, again, data for progress. This is only one poll. As of right now, it looks like Fetterman would be the nominee. I think he's pretty strong. Again, he has some very left-wing positions that I think might hurt him in the state of Pennsylvania, but I think also those same positions could appeal to white working class voters, at least some of them. He's not going to win white working class, but even if he does better with them by a few points, this seat would be a pickup. So in that case, whichever Democrat does be the nominee, I think in a best case, this would be a pickup for Democrats. I think in a best case scenario, it's a lean margin, 3-4. Again, best case, I think that's the ceiling right now. But that already gives Democrats the majority, 51 seats. Next, we move on to North Carolina. North Carolina would be challenging for Democrats to win. This was a state Trump won by 1.3%, but it's a state that hasn't voted for a Democrat federally since 2008, so for the Senate or any other office. Statewide, that's a bit different, though. Statewide, I think the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and the Governor are all Democrats. But federally, it's a different story. North Carolina tends to favor Republicans more. It depends on the candidate they run. I think Republicans, in this case, this would be their state to lose in the Senate elections. And I think, obviously, in a Democratic best-case scenario, it would be a pickup. It would be a narrow pickup, though. I think it would be by a tilt margin, because I think Republicans are going to be favored in this state because it's an off year and because of the state's voting history. Republicans tend to do fairly well on the Senate level. Again, Tom Tillis, who was the Republican nominee back in November, he outperformed Trump by a couple tens of thousands of votes, I think, around 10,000 votes or something like that. So he was able to do better in suburban areas. Democrats need someone who can hold on to the suburbs by the margins Joe Biden did, and also do slightly better in the rest of the state, particularly the southeastern part of the state, which is more swingy than the western part of the state, which tends to be more Republican. Although these areas, particularly in the west, are a bit lighter red than I thought they would be, considering they are bordering Tennessee, but that's probably because of the Asheville metro area type thing. I don't know much about Western North Carolina. But I do think that Democrats, in a best case, would win this state by under 2 points. It would be a tilt margin, but they would pick it up. Georgia, incumbent Senator Raphael Warnock, who, if we look at his election, in the special election, he was able to win by 2 points. He overperformed John Ossoff, I think, by 0.8. Something like that. Oh, no, I think it was 1.2. Something like that. And he was able to do that because he did resoundingly well in DeKalb, Fulton, and the Atlanta metro area. But not even just the suburbs, the exurbs as well. You know, Cherokee, Fulton, Cherokee, Forsyth County, Paulding County. All these counties that used to be like deep red, like these counties in Georgia, are a lighter shade of red. They're still very red counties. A 2-to-1 margin is still a very red county. But it's not nearly the numbers that Republicans need to win the state. I think Democrats, in a lot of ways, electorally speaking, the political geography in Georgia is now favoring them. The Atlanta metro area is blue now. It's a blue area. Cobb County, Gwinnett, these are blue counties now. I don't see them going back anytime soon. The question is, how blue will they be, and what are the margins in the rest of the state? I think it's very likely in a best case scenario Warnock wins re-election by a lean margin. I think he could win the state by as much as a 4-point margin. And so in a best case scenario, I think Democrats certainly hold on to the state of Georgia. If we look at the Senate race in Florida, I still don't really see this race as a very competitive one. I think in a best case scenario, Democrats would probably put this race into the maybe the lean column. Probably around 6 or 7 points, I think, is the best Democrats are going to do against Marco Rubio. He won by a 6-point margin last time, and in the polling, he is doing resoundingly well against all of his opponents. I think this is definitely going to be a race that Republicans will be heavily favored in, even if Democrats do fairly well here. I don't know if it'll get as close as a lean margin. I don't think it's going to get within 5 points, but it certainly could get, 6, 7, something like that. Not a high likely margin or a safe margin for Democrats into this election. Anyway, that's all for today's video. Please leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification so you don't miss any new videos. As always, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.